Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Cathedra webinar. We are coming to you live on February 17th, 2026. You're tuning in today for Creating a Positive Work Environment with your instructor, Dr. William R. Latchford, who's president of Native Peacekeeper Consulting Group. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're also thrilled you could tune in for the webinar today. If you could follow along while I read this disclaimer aloud. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes, and the material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law printed here. This is just a friendly reminder that the webinar materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. This is a series. If you wish to view some of the other classes, there have been 6 so far. You can find it in the courses section under the strategic leadership series. And this is also where you can return to find the recording of today's webinar once it's posted tomorrow. If you want to tune in for a later part of the series or any of our other webinars, you'll log in like you did today and just click on that green banner at the top of the screen to join. We do ask that you join with listen-only capabilities because it helps to cut down on any audio feedback in the recording. And if you found that your sound is coming out of the wrong device, maybe you're trying to use headphones or a Bluetooth speaker, you can come down to the bottom of your screen where there's a telephone icon on the screen. You might have a headset icon, but either way, you can click on that and bring up a list of your speaker devices. Even though we tend to ask that you join on mute, we do still want to encourage class participation. We want to know your questions and comments, and we'll rely primarily on the public chat for that. If you don't have it open, you can open it up in the messages panel. And then whatever you'd like to say or ask, or if there's any tech support issues I can try to help you with, you can type that into the box that says send message to public chat and hit enter, or you can click on the little paper airplane. If you come over here to the shared notes section, there is a list of helpful links. One of them is a link to the presentation slides. I did include that for you in the chat, but I will put that into the chat once more for easy access. And if you did join with your mic on, no problem. You can always come down here to mute yourself. And if you think we missed a question or possibly a comment along the way, you can use the hand raise feature that's at the bottom right corner of your screen. We'd love if you introduced yourselves in the chat. It's always fun to see all the different folks who are joining the webinar. You could let us know your name, where you're tuning in from, your work or your role in Indian country, and your tribal affiliation if you have it. You might be a tribal employee and you don't have your own affiliation. That's okay. You are also welcome. And then just a quick final note while y'all are introducing yourselves in the chat, we want to try our best to avoid clicking on the red menu column that's all the way to the left side of the screen. If you don't have yours expanded, you might just see the little icons, but know that it will pull you out of the webinar if you click on that menu and it'll take you to what you selected. You can always just rejoin by clicking on the green banner at the top of the screen once again. All right, while you guys are introducing yourselves in the chat, it's with great pleasure that I introduce your webinar instructor, Dr. William R. Latchford, and we'll have you presenter now.
All right, thank you, Brooke. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is enjoying this Tuesday afternoon. I want to thank you and congratulate you for always trying to improve yourself and taking the time today to be on the webinar. It's my honor to be your instructor this afternoon as we go through another webinar in the leadership series. So thank you for being here and taking the time to just improve and enhance who you are and what you do every day. As Brooke indicated, this is one of 16 series in a leadership growth webinar series. This is creating a positive work environment. These webinars are put together to provide you just a basic foundation of the topics, kind of get you in a position to where you may think of something differently in the way you're thinking every day, kind of spark some a new positive environment in you that some of the topics we go over, the information, again, a 90-minute webinar is just a high-level overview, but they're really productive. They're really good information, not only just the 90 minutes being live, but the webinar's PowerPoint is packed with information that you can utilize even after the webinar. Of course, my contact information is also in there, so feel free to jot that down and take it with you if you ever need the soundboard or just have any discussion on any leadership topics. So in the chat, I'm going to post a couple of questions in the chat. If you can just look at your chat real quick, and I'm going to read the questions through there. But we're going to talk about creating a positive work environment for the next 90 minutes. It sounds pretty simple, and sometimes we think it's obvious that creating a work environment is easy. But if it was that easy, every workplace would have a positive work environment, and there wouldn't be a need for this type of webinar, or we wouldn't have any adverse environments within our work environment. Before we talk about strategies or communications or even the framework of creating a positive work environment, I want to start with just a little bit of deeper thought. Today, I want to show just these 4 simple statements that I have here that are in the chat, and I'll go ahead and read them. It's, I must do well. I have to be approved by others. People should treat me fairly, and life ought to be easy and enjoyable. Let me read them again. I must do well as an employee or a leader. I have to be approved by others as an employee or a leader. People should treat me fairly as an employee or a leader. And life ought to be easy and enjoyable. Now, none of these 4 statements sound unreasonable. In fact, they sound kind of normal. They're really what our expectations are as individuals, regardless of what work environment that we work in. These are kind of we assume that they're unwritten, the unwritten rules that we should all be living by, and that we should be following. And again, none of them sound unreasonable. There may be even individuals that look at this as just an admirable organization or an admirable environment if the environment is bred with these 4 statements. But here's the question I want us to all think about this afternoon as we navigate this 90-minute webinar. What happens when these become demands instead of preferences, right? What happens if these 4 statements become demands? They're demands in the environment instead of the preference or the expectation, the way we think people should be treated in an environment to create that positive work environment. In a workplace, these beliefs quietly shape how we lead, how we respond under pressure, and how we treat each other. So when we look at those 4 statements, you know, there's a lot that goes behind those 4 statements, and each individual statement carries a heavy weight and a heavy definition or impact in our environment. If I must do well, what happens when I don't? Right? If I must do well, what happens when I don't do well? Right? That's when failure starts to feel threatening to me as an individual, right? So if I don't do well, then I start to go down this path of what happens to failure. When does failure start traveling down the path? What pops into my brain that failure starts to feel threatening when I don't do well? If I have to be approved, how honest am I willing to be, right? So if and this is an ethical question, right? So if I have to be approved, how honest am I willing to be? Do I deal with hard conversations? And how do I deal with those hard conversations? Hard conversations get avoided when we are faced sometimes with, I have to be approved by others. If I have to be approved by others and I'm put in a position of, am I going to have those hard conversations? Do my ethics kick in just to do the right thing? Even though it's going to be hard on me, do I do the right thing and have those conversations? Do I do the right thing and admit when I'm wrong, or admit that I may not have handled a situation a certain way, that I could have done it better? If people should treat me fairly, how do I react when they don't? Do I treat people the way I want to be treated, or do I treat people one way and I hold them to a standard of being treated somewhere else? That's when resentment builds. Resentment builds, and it builds very quick in any environment. If work ought to be easy, how resilient am I when it's not? That's when frustration replaces perseverance. We get frustrated, we handle things wrong, we say things that we may not mean, or we say things that are mean and they shouldn't really be said. These beliefs just don't affect our stress levels. They affect our team morale. They affect the psychological safety in the environment. They affect the accountability that's in the environment and our organization. And it also affects the organizational culture. It creates an environment that no one wants to live or breed in, no one wants to work in. And that becomes part of the issue, where creating a positive work environment starts to get derailed and it starts to become an environment where no one wants to be. And here's what I've learned over the last 32 years of my leadership career is a workplace culture is not built on policy manuals. It's not built on the boss saying this is what you do because it's the way I said to do it. It's built on how people think under pressure and how they're treated. A positive work environment isn't about being nice. It's about being resilient. It's about holding people accountable. It's about trust. It's about how we respond when things don't go our way. And it's about treating people the way we want to be treated. Today isn't just about skills. It's about taking this course or taking this 90 minutes and kind of having a self-reflection on and about our mindset on where we are today and how we're impacting our environment that we're in. Because the culture of any organization is not built on policies. It's built on the beliefs of the employees. It's built on the belief of the leaders. It's built on the belief as the overall team when they walk into the room or they're brought into a room. If we don't examine our thinking will drive our behavior, and our behavior will shape how the workplace is going to be. So today we're going to challenge some of the automatic beliefs that limit leadership's effectiveness, and we're going to replace them with ones that build resiliency, clarity, and hopefully a strong team culture. My goal at the end of this session is for you to walk away with not just some tools, but a different internal dialogue. An internal dialogue that can help you create an environment that's going to be positive, not just for you, but for everybody that you come in contact with. Anybody that is in your organization and anybody that is provide a service to. And through this, the next 90 minutes, I want you to keep at the forefront of this. Somebody saw when you started in the current position that you're in, and hopefully what the statement that I'm making applies to all of you, is somebody saw something special in each one of you to hold the position that you're currently in. And they saw something special that can make an impact and provide an impact to the organization that you work for. And when you started and somebody brought that to you and gave you that opportunity to be part of an organization and be part of a team in your program, you never really thought about how the environment was. Was it positive? Was it negative? Did you think about what you're going to bring to the environment? Did you think about that you moving into the organization is going to be an addition to complement how good the organization is and you're going to make it better? Or did you think about the fact that as you navigate through entering into your new world and your new opportunity that you were given, that you wanted to learn from the people around you and kind of be part of that success if you have a successful program? A lot of times people don't think that far ahead, especially moving into a new position. You're nervous, you're timid because you want to fit in. You don't want anybody not to like you, so you're reserved, you're quiet, and you sit back. But the reality is your nonverbal is also going to play into the creating a positive or negative work environment and how people see you and how they communicate with your verbal or your nonverbal cues. So today, for the next 90 minutes, we're going to talk about some of those issues at a high level. We're going to, hopefully, you'll be able to walk away with some information that could help you navigate your current environment that you're in. And more importantly, help you kind of look in the mirror and take a step back and see what you're contributing to the environment. Are you being a positive influence to the environment that you're in, or are you creating a Tasmanian devil type environment where you're the terror that's coming in and you're creating this upheaval of environment, making people's worlds miserable? So hopefully it's the first part of it, that you just want to look in the mirror and continue the positive behavior that you have with the influence you have. But if you're on the backside of that, to where you're not necessarily the most positive one and you're affecting the environment negatively, this should jumpstart you to become positive and give you the tools to at least start navigating down that path. A little bit about me. About 30 years ago, I was provided the opportunity from the Seminole Tribe to be a police officer with the Seminole Tribe of Florida. And through that next 30 years, I was given the opportunity and a great opportunity really to make an impact in the community and really give back, right? We get into positions to make a difference. We get in positions to provide a service, regardless of if it's in public safety or if it's in tribal housing or if it's even behind a desk doing grants, right? You're making a difference and there's value in everything you do. So over 30 years ago, I was able to step into a great organization that provided me an opportunity. And through that process, I was able to make a difference. And I can honestly say that, that my journey has not stopped because I retired. My journey continues to give back on those lessons that I've learned through my career and through the Seminole Tribe. Currently, I'm a co-director at Florida State University Native American Crime and Justice Policy Institute co-director. I'm a professor adjunct for the St. Leo College that's just north of Tampa, Florida. And I'm the president and co-owner of Native Peacekeeper Consulting Group that goes around the country just to enhance organizations to give back, help policy development and professional development to where we can provide leadership training and give back to a profession, not only the public safety profession, but every organization and make a difference in. So I have my doctorate in criminology leadership. And of course, my master's is in in criminal justice, homeland security, and my bachelor's is in public administration. So I'm honored as your instructor to be here today with you. Native Peacekeeper Consultant Group is owned by Seminole Tribal member Amy Osceola Latchford, and basically to keep it simple as far as what our organization does is her whole philosophy is to give back to lessons that you've learned in your life, to pass along to others that it may have a positive impact so they can build off of it and make it better from when we come in contact with them. So her whole mission is to empower organizations through sustainable solutions, from a community partnership to just elevating the organization that we put our hands on, to be able to not tell them what to do, but to go in and to provide resources for them and give back and just make a difference, continue to make a difference in people's lives and move that needle just a little bit every time that we travel around to any organization within Indian country and also outside Indian country from a government standpoint or the private sector. As we go through the training process today, if I say something contradictory to your policy, which most likely I'm not going to, but if I do, and sometimes I'll start talking and you may get the feeling that I may be talking directly to you, which most likely I'm not. But if I say something contradictory to your policies are important. Please follow your policies. If there's something I say here today that may generate to improve your policies, feel free to go back to your leadership to have that discussion. And policies are meant to be fluid. So sometimes you need to change policies, and sometimes training kind of gives us that push to do that. So if you do hear a contradiction from me today, it's not by purpose, but it may be a good opportunity for you to look at your policies, and if you do hear a contradiction in that. All right, so again, this webinar is going to be about 90 minutes. I'm going to talk most of the time, but I'll ask you to participate within the chat and ask some questions and ask you maybe jot some stuff down just for yourself. as we go through the PowerPoint. And just again, it's for your self advancement, for your self reflection, and for your personal growth. So I want you to take a moment as we sit here on the webinar and take a moment of reflection and think about where you sit in your organization and if you are a positive person within the environment that you work in. And that's not just basically doing what everybody wants you to do. That's not what I'm referring to. What I'm asking you to do is look at the environment that you're in and the position you're in. And with that opportunity that you have, are you a positive person within the environment? If I had to ask one of your coworkers and they had to, in confidence, answer my question, if I had to ask them, what does it mean to work for X, right? And you are X. What would they tell me? Would they tell me that you are a positive person that creates and helps derive and deliver a positive work environment? Or would they tell me that you're not an individual that really gives input into a positive work environment, that you just exist? Would they tell me something that may be of a negative connotation? And again, I'm not asking you to put that in the chat. I'm asking you to do a self-reflection of that, because that's how we learn, right? You don't have to tell everybody your weaknesses or tell anybody your weaknesses, but sometimes just questions and self-reflections give us that opportunity, and it gives us that baseline where we're at. And in this particular case, where is your baseline when it comes to your impact on creating a positive work environment? Now, not all of us have had the opportunity to work in a truly positive work environment. Yet a positive workplace is crucial to not only the company's success and productivity, but it's also crucial to our personal success and well-being. I can tell you throughout my career, there's been times where I've had bosses or individuals that I've dealt with that have created me to kind of judge or kind of reflect on what my attitude is, right? And I've had to kind of bring myself back to even when I started to go to the negative way because of that negative environment that I was in. So I always had the control. I always had control of myself on if I wanted to engage or disengage in the environment. And the goal is always, I think, for everybody is to engage in a positive work environment and stay away from any of the negativity. So today we're going to try and equip you with some tools, practical tools that can create a type of environment that you can crave, right? That you can continue to build off of, whether you're influencing your organization or you're an immediate team member, right? Sometimes when you're not a leader, you acquiesce to the leaders and your leader may not give you that opportunity to have a voice or have an impact into the positive work environment, right? You'll learn how to build and nurture effective workplace relationships that form foundations as a positive environment where people want to work, right? We all want to be in a work environment that is positive, right? I haven't met anybody in my entire career that says, I want to be in a work environment that is just totally nasty. People treat us the wrong way. It's miserable when I come to work. This is what I want to see. I want to see people that are not happy. I want to see people that are complaining all the time. I want to see people that are griping all the time. They're complaining about the boss. They're complaining about the organization. I haven't met anybody that has ever told me those statements. Quite the contrary, people have told me they want to be in a work environment. They want to be in a positive work environment that provides them the opportunity where people listen to them. People give them the opportunity to speak. People give them the opportunity to really flourish and provide an opportunity where they can have professional and personal development in an environment where they can truly make a difference without having the stress or heartache that comes with somebody being negative. So I'm a strong believer. Everybody wants to be in a positive work environment. Now that's easy to say because even though we may believe that, not necessarily do we take our actions and does our behavior transpose into a positive work environment. So that's something we always have to work for and work at every day, regardless of what position we're in. We have to work for and work at ensuring that we have a positive work environment every day in our organization. So I want you just to think about, go through your career. I could tell you many, but just take a second to think about throughout your whole career, even maybe where you're sitting right now, the influence you had over your career from a positive and negative work environment, right? What impact did that have on you, right? What impact from a productivity standpoint did that have on you? A lot of times when we're in a negative work environment, that affects our productivity. That affects how workers are going to deliver that product. Am I going to get the bare bones out of one of my employees because it's a negative work environment? Most likely, when you're in a negative work environment, research has shown that the work productivity is going to suffer. People are going to do the bare minimum just to get by. And the reality is, when that happens, when a work environment is that poor, the community is the one that suffers, and the environment is spread with rumors, gossip, emotion, drama. And the reality is, the reason why we're there, go back to the point of somebody gave you an opportunity to work at an organization, we've just lost all focus of why we're there. And that's usually what happens when we don't have a positive work environment. And we've all have experienced at different levels throughout our career, we've experienced that type of environment either through one person who's come across our path and our journey that has had a negative environment, or the entire program because of the way the program is run or leadership is creating that type of environment. What I stress to you, and as we go through this today, is that creating a positive work environment, you also have to have a positive mentality. And through that positive mentality, and it's difficult, I will tell you, it's difficult, but you can train yourself. So I want you to start focusing on looking how you can train yourself, train your mindset to, when you go off center and you start to go down the negative path, that you bring it back to center and you bring it back to a learning lesson for you. Everybody can be your teacher, and every environment can be your teacher. So if you're currently in a negative environment where it's not positive, or you're dealing with a negative supervisor, or you may be that negative supervisor that has to change to a positive environment, the good part about this is it can be done. But you need to stay positive. You need to stay confident and use everybody around you as your teacher. Give them the opportunity to teach you. Give yourself the opportunity to learn, right? But use that negative person. If you're not that negative person and you're being pulled to the negative side, use that person as the teacher, right? Use those lessons that they're been brought to you. They've been put in your path for a reason. And that reason is to make you better. It's going to make you stronger. And so use that individual to make yourself better and to create that environment and help complement that environment to continue on that path of excellence to create that positive work environment. Why does this matter? Why does a positive work environment matter? And it impacts three different areas in our life and in our organization, right? The first one is it personal impacts. Personal impacts, it improves our emotions. It improves our physical health. It's greater job satisfaction, and it reduces stress. That's why you want to have a strong, positive work environment from a personal standpoint, right? From a personal standpoint, you have an investment. You want to make sure that you're not dealing in crisis all the time. You want to make sure that you're not dealing with the negative and the drama, right? You want to make sure you can stay healthy as many years that you want to work. If it's 30 or 40 or 50 years or even longer, you want to make sure that that environment does not contribute negatively to your health. What it also does, and why this matters to have a positive work environment, it gives you the opportunity for job satisfaction. We all want to show that we're making a difference. We want to visually see it, right? We just don't want to say we want to make a difference. The reality is, and I'm a believer, that people want to see the change that they make or that service they're providing. They want to help people. In the tribal housing and other tribal programs and programs outside tribes, people are service oriented. They're servant individuals, they're servant leaders, and they want to make a difference. And by making the difference, that's where that satisfaction comes. And lastly, we want to reduce our stress, right? If we can reduce our stress in an environment to make sure it's a positive environment, it's going to help us from a personal standpoint, right? We're not going to go home and take our work home. We're not going to go home and take our emotions with us to where we're at home and we go to our spouse and we tell our spouse how bad work is because of who our boss is and how our boss treats us or how our coworkers are treating us. We're gonna not have that opportunity to do that because it's not happening at work. We can go home and we can shut our environment off. We can enjoy our family. We can enjoy our kids, right? And we can have a stability home life that is stress-free, and we're not thinking about work until we have to go back and turn that switch on to go back to work. Why it also matters, it's going to impact the team, right? It enhances collaboration when you have a positive work environment. When you have a core team that plays together, they win together. And it's going to enhance that collaboration. It's going to increase their innovation. When you have an environment where people feel that they can have input and their voice matters, they're going to provide their best foot forward. They're going to provide their best self to that environment. And that's what a positive work environment does, right? And it also creates stronger relationships in the workplace. It creates an esprit de corps that you can utilize to help provide a higher service to the community that you're serving. And lastly, it matters because from an organizational impact, again, you're going to, from a program standpoint, you're going to have higher productivity. You're going to have lower turnover, right? The turnover isn't going to be as much because people want to stay, right? It's not about necessarily the money all the time. It's about staying in an environment that they can be successful in and they can be happy in, they can be positive in, right? You're going to have less complaints. Your customers are going to appreciate more the positive experience that they're getting from your customers. And you're going to have a better, stronger financial performance, right? And what that means is sometimes our work will dictate kind of how those benefits come to us, right? So if we're taking care of the people in the community or the people we serve, sometimes our positive work environment will have a direct impact on benefits that are provided to us. Lastly, what's not up there that I want to add to that is that it's going to decrease the turnover that you have at your organization, and it's also going to decrease any potential lawsuits or workman's comp claims when it comes to stress-related environments, hostile work environments, or hostile complaint environments. It's going to have a good impact to where your environment won't deal with those issues, right? So if you have a negative work environment, you're going to have a litany of negative things, which are definitely going to possibly cause litigation, if not heartache, not just for your program, but the entire program or the entire organization. So it has an organizational impact. And lastly, no organization should cause you any type of issues that when you wake up in the morning that would prevent you or even have the thought that you don't want to go to work. Go back to the day you started. You chose to go work for this organization. And you want to be that positive impact, but sometimes you can't control others. If an organization is creating an environment where you don't want to come to work in the morning when you wake up, that's something you need to evaluate. We want to create an environment where every one of our employees wake up, they have a positive attitude that they want to show up at work ready to go. They enjoy the environment, they enjoy the people they're working around, and they enjoy the service they're providing to the people that they're impacting. So as we go over to learning objectives, I'll go over this real quick. We want to recognize what a positive workforce looks like or workplace looks like. We want to understand key elements that are necessary to create and maintain a positive work environment. We want to learn specific actions that employees at all levels can take to foster positivity. We want to discover your team player style, right? We all have a style that we use and how it impacts workplace dynamics. We want to develop strategies for building effective workplace relationships, and we want to master practical teamwork guidelines for a striving workplace. So as we go through today, we're going to talk about 4 different areas. The first part, we're going to talk about understanding a positive workplace. We're going to discuss the characteristics of a positive work environment. We're going to talk about those benefits and those impacts that positive work environment provides you. And we're going to assess, or you're going to assess on your side, your current environment that you're in where you sit. We're also going to look at individual contributions, what employees are responsible for, right? As a leader, what are you responsible for in your organization when it comes to creating that positive work environment? And then again, understanding your team player style. We're going to build effective relationships. We're going to look at that. We're going to communicate what those foundations are. We want to look at trust building strategies, and then we're going to look at some conflict resolution techniques that you can use. And lastly, we're going to go over team dynamics, the principles of an effective teamwork, creating team norms, and then some different recommendations that you can use with regards to creating action plans as you move forward in your environment. So let's look at part one, understanding positive workplaces. Now, what does a positive workplace look like, right? So open communication is the one that I usually hear, and research really drives this, is information flows freely in an open communication when you're looking at a positive workplace. Feedback is given constructively and received openly, right? It's a two-way street. It's just not the boss saying this is the way you're going to do it because I'm the boss and this is how it's done. People need to feel safe to express their ideas and their concerns. If you want a positive workplace, this is something that you need to have on one of your foundations, a mission-driven, open communication flow that is going to provide the employees the opportunity to express themselves, good and bad, right? Sometimes we need to hear the bad to make things good. So you need to provide a platform and an opportunity where employees can have the opportunity just for an open dialogue, open discussions. Mutual respect. Just because you have a title does not mean that you're on a pedestal and everybody else is below you. You just have the opportunity to enhance others' development, right? As a boss, as a leader, that's your job. It's only to make others better. It's not to tell them that you're better. It's not for you to bark orders at them. The reason you're a boss is to have that mutual respect, that you can bring all those different values together, and you can create an environment where everybody respects yourself, respects the environment, respects the communication, respects the word that is discussed. People treat others with dignity regardless of the position, right? And that's a strong statement that if you walk away with anything today, is that to have a positive work environment, it starts with people creating an environment where they treat others with dignity, regardless of whatever the position they hold, right? I would always tell the police officers that you should treat everybody as if you're dealing with your mom, right? Everybody treats your mom. Your mom is the foundation of the family, and everybody treats their mother with respect and values the moms. Not only just how they carry themselves, but just their word, right? So if you treat everybody as if you treat your mom, as long as you treat your mom right? Hopefully you're not one of those individuals that don't treat your mom right. But if you treat your mom right, then you should be okay when you deal with employees and creating that mutual respect. You want everyone to feel like they're valued and they're part of the family and the program that you're in. You want to also create a positive growth mindset. Learning is encouraged. You want people to grow. Your job as a leader, if you're a leader on this webinar, your job is to enhance individuals' growth, right? So why wouldn't you want to create a growth mindset that leaders can encourage others to always be a life learner, to learn in the environment they're in? Mistakes are viewed as opportunities. Professional development is prioritized and supported. We want to recognize all the wins. We're very quick as a society to recognize the things that are wrong. We need to flip that. We need to recognize all the wins and the things that are right, and the things that are wrong, we just need to recognize, we need to acknowledge, but we need to recognize we have to fix those and take the necessary steps to fix it and make sure it doesn't happen again. So that growth mindset is very important. Some more characteristics of a positive work environment is work-life balance, right? Personal time is respected. Flexibility accommodates life circumstances. Well-being is considered in workload management. I know a lot of you, and traveling around the country dealing with housing programs, Your day doesn't stop once you go home. Once you clock out at 5 o'clock or whatever time you get off work, it doesn't stop at night. We need to create, and it's up to us, every individual, to create that environment where it does stop at night and we can shut our work off until the next day. If we can't shut it off until the next day, our program will never succeed successfully as it can be. We need to create the environment for a positive workplace, and we need to make sure we balance and we find that work-life balance in every individual that works for us. We want to create an environment that's positive, that's going to thrive and thrive for employees to have meaningful work. We want them to connect to the purpose, which is clear. We want them to understand what those expectations are. We want them to understand when a new expectation comes, that it's communicated to them so they can put it in their tool chest. And we want to make sure that impact of work is visible. Values alignment between individual and organizations must exist. Find those attributes in the work environment that correlate with an individual's values. They're not going to be 100% square peg, square hole, but everybody that we hire, everybody that goes through the interview process, just like you did when you obtained the job that you're in, somebody saw something in you that was of value. Somebody saw something that was going to bring a difference in the organization and bring a positive difference in the organization. Once we get into the organization, sometimes we lose that thing or that topic that we see that this person can make a difference in our program. So as bosses and as leaders that are on the call, you want to take those values. You want to identify those values that every team member or employee brings to the organization and correlate them to your program's values, right? And that's where people will thrive. If people can connect with values, their personal values, with the organizational values, you will have one dynamic employee, and that will create a positive work environment for not only the program, but will create for the employee as well. Recognition culture. Achievements are celebrated, effort is acknowledged, and various contribution styles are valued and appreciated. Now, I'll put this to you this way. I go around the country training, and one of the questions I always ask in the class is that, when's the last time that you thanked your IT people, right? So there may be some IT people on the call here today, and this isn't specifically directed towards you. But I asked that question for a reason, and it could be any program or any individual. And the reality is why I asked that is because a lot of times we send emails to the help desk. We call the help desk when there's something wrong with our computer. Every time they get an email from us, it's because something is wrong. And I always ask the question, when's the last time you sent an email to your help desk, just letting them know that you appreciate them and you thank them for being on the other side of that call or that email when you need help, right? Why do we wait to send them the negative, right? Why do we wait to send them an email when something is wrong? How come we can't send them an email when something is right? And that will help you create a positive work environment. Spread the positivity and let people know and recognize people when they do good things or they have done good things for you in the past. Let them know that you appreciate that. When you do it after the damage is done or the problem is exposed, right? You're doing in connection to the problem. What I'm saying is, don't do it when a problem is connected to it. Do it in times when there's no problem, everything is good, and you just want to reach out and let people know that you appreciate them and you thank them for what they're doing, right? So as we're sitting here going through this webinar, that's a hint for all of you on the call. If you want to send some positive vibes today, right now sitting at the computer, if you have two screens, pull up an email and send an email to somebody in IT or even another program. It could be somewhere else in your organization, and let them know, hey, I'm just thinking about you. I was thinking about every time that we have an issue, you're always there and you help us on everything that we need. Even though I don't have a problem right now, I just want to let you know that you're appreciated, right? Recognize the achievements that you have around you, and that will help create a positive work environment. So many times We want to gripe. We want to call out the negative. We want to call out when somebody is wrong. And we're all guilty of that, right? Throughout my career, I could probably tell you there's times where I did it and when I did it, right? That's how going through this process and leadership over the last 32 years, you remember those things that were lessons for you. So what I encourage you to do is spread the culture, spread that recognizing culture, and start taking that time when nothing's happening to let people know that you appreciate them. And then when something does happen, then you reinforce it. You reinforce it when something happens and they take care of it for you. Then you can follow up again and let them know. And that will continue to create that positive work environment, not just externally. IT example is just one example. You could send it to your employees right now. You could sit and send an email to one of your employees saying, listen, I'm sitting here. I'm just thinking about you and thinking about how lucky I am to have you in my program and the work that you're doing. I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great afternoon, right? Just as simple as that. You let people know, but you have to be consistent, right? Don't be fake about it. Be real about it, because the reality is we appreciate the people who do things for us. We appreciate our coworkers. We appreciate other leaders that help us out. And we just want to let people know that their work to us is meaningful. And that will help you transition into a higher level positive workplace. Says, what's the benefits of a positive work environment for employees, right? So when we structure a positive work environment, employees have a benefit to this, right? It reduces stress and burnout, right? It increases that job satisfaction. They feel better about their physical and mental health. They have a stronger relationship in a professional sense with their coworkers and even their boss, right? And that helps with professional development. If they have those strong relationships with their coworkers and their boss, they are the potential heir apparent of taking over supervision positions. So that strong relationships contributes to having a positive work environment. Again, enhance career development, and it gives them a greater sense of purpose and meaning. I'm a big believer people want to come in and they want to make a difference. They want to have purpose. They want to have meaning. And through that purpose and meaning, that gives them the satisfaction that they're making a difference. And that is the benefit to having a positive work environment. That benefit is directly for the employee. As we go over the benefits of an organization, again, you're going to create an organization that's a high productivity and performance organization. It's going to increase innovation and creativity. It's going to improve your customer satisfaction, right? Your customers will see the difference. If you have a positive workforce internally, that's going to be transparent and it's going to spread. It's going to spread out of your program to the community or the people you serve, and they will see it. It's going to lower any type of turnover or absenteeism, and it's going to enhance the employer brand, right? You want people bragging about your organization. You want people to talk high about your organization and how well everybody gets along and how great the leadership is and how well your productivity is from the standpoint of providing a service to your community. You want your organization to be seen in a very positive light, and that's where having a positive work environment provides that benefit. And again, better financial status. Again, that's something I put on there because I'm a true believer. Sometimes when you show people the quality of work that you have and that high level of work, then you become that role model and people want to reward you. So from a benefit standpoint, there could be opportunities for you to increase your benefits from that standpoint. I see there's some HR people on there. I don't say that to make your job harder, but I say that just because if people understand they can do their job at a higher level, then there's some rewards that come along with that. Not necessarily breaking the bank, but it gives them an opportunity where the organization cares about them and may increase their benefit package in a certain way that may be beneficial for the employee and the organization. So I put this on here just as an activity that we can go through that you can reflect on. So if I had to ask you, and this is where you can use the chat and just put put, you don't have to write war and peace in this. Just put a couple words in there. What aspects of your workplace currently contribute to a positive work environment? So if you can take the chat and just take a second and throw those words up there, that what aspect of your workplace currently contribute to a positive work environment? Like department potlucks, that's great. Everybody sitting around, having food together, having fellowship, just bringing everybody together and letting everybody know that they're appreciated. Thank you, Janisa. That's a great one. Anybody else have anything to add and want to throw on the chat? The employee spotlight recognition is a good one. Thank you. That you work with children, right? Just the people that we work with and that service population brings it. Birthday celebrations, holiday celebrations for even small holidays, right? Monthly supervisor meetings that happen, work with elders. These are all great opportunities that create that positive and have the ability to create a positive work environment, right? We want to take these opportunities and hold on to them, right? We want to build off of them, because these opportunities that you're sharing now, the same circumstances you could share with other topics within your program, right? You could take that philosophy that you're using when it comes to monthly supervisor meetings and just getting in a room talking to people. When you talk to people on an individual basis, you can use that same philosophy. Workplace community connections, that's a phenomenal one, because we can learn from the community that we serve. We can learn from that service population, and we can take that positivity that they have in the community and we can bring it into our organization. Taking breaks together, just doing things together as one. That team building is phenomenal, and that should be every day, right? We want to create environments that we all work in, that we feel acknowledged, we feel that we're part of a team, and it's something that we can experience every day. So when I get up in the morning, I have that same feeling of going to sit down with elders and learn about my history, learn about the culture, learn about the environment, sitting with my team members and just finding out about their family and finding out about their kids and what great things their kids are doing in the environment. Taking that opportunity to recognize these are all strengths that you can force multiply. You can take this mentality that you have in strengths and you can put them to other topics. Now let's talk about some challenges, right? Let's talk about what factors are currently detracting from the positive environment, right? Don't say anything vulgar or anything in the chat, but what are those things that you run into in a work environment that kind of take away from having a positive work environment, right? So put some words up there that you may have experienced in the past, or you may be experiencing now, or somebody who experienced something that is challenging for the work environment. No acknowledgement, right? Too busy. Living in crisis is a prime example. Everything right now in society is driven by, in my opinion, social media, right? People are getting answers within milliseconds. And so when we're at work, sometimes we don't have those milliseconds. Sometimes it takes us a couple hours or even a day to get the answer, right? So we're driven in crisis. Negative attitudes is one. Negative attitudes can foster an environment which takes away from a positive work environment, right? Individuals that feel bullied, right? Employee bullyingness and intimidating of other employees. That's a great one. Thank you. Overwork with no acknowledgement, not knowing the policies. How many times do people sit that we run into over our careers? And as you can see this list here, I will tell you, you can relate what others are writing. And that's why I do this exercise on the webinars, because we're not in it alone. A lot of things we're dealing with, others are dealing with, and we can learn from others and we can recognize what others are doing. So we're going to experience these challenges that are there. What I would say to you, each one on the call, and this is not to put in the chat, it's just to kind of have the thought, right? What's one change that you'd make that is the biggest positive difference, right? So if I had to talk about no acknowledgement, right? How would I change that in my environment? If you had the ability to change the reason that you put up there on the chat, what would you do? I'm not asking you to type that. If you want to type it, it's up to you. But what would you do, right? What would you do to change that type of environment, right? And a lot of times people just think, oh, I'd fire everybody. Well, the reality is you can't fire everybody because then your program wouldn't exist, right? And as leaders, as bosses, we have to take the opportunity to develop individuals, right? We have to create that environment to develop them, to make them either positive employees, enhance their work environment, and give them the opportunity to grow, to be successful. And then if they resist that, then you may have issues. But we want to take every one of these opportunities that are challenges for us, and we want to create those opportunities. So you could sit down and go through this exercise yourself and write down all those challenges that are creating you or preventing you from having a positive work environment. Write them down on a piece of paper and then sit down and create a game plan for each one of them, right? Create those opportunities that you can take that will help you navigate each one of those challenges. Sometimes we get caught up in the emotion. Sometimes we get caught up in the heartache and that hurtness that we have sometimes in the environment. But if we sit down and we take the emotion out of it, right? So take the emotion out of it when you look at these challenges, take the emotion out of it and really look at, and this is using brain power, right? We all have to use our brain and our brain power. And sometimes it's hurtful because we got to dig deep down, because sometimes we may recognize we are part of the problem. Sometimes we have to recognize that we may not be the problem, but we contributed to the situation. So we have to sit down and we have to be honest. So I challenge all of you through the process and through your journey is to take those strengths, write them down, and identify where you can use them to build in your organization, and then take those challenges and write them down and look at what opportunities that you can instill into your organization and your work environment to make your environment better for a positive work environment for yourself. So let's look over at part 2 of individual contributions. Everyone has a responsibility to create a positive work environment. When you sit down in an interview and you're interviewing new employees, one of the aspects that you may want to consider is ask the question, tell us what you would do to help us make our environment a better positive work environment. You can phrase it any way you want, right? When you're sitting in an interview, the goal is to get that individual to start recognizing and start thinking that they have a responsibility. They have an inherent responsibility when they come to work for you. They have a responsibility to always create a positive work environment, right? They chose to come work for you. You as an individual that's an employee now, you chose that position you're in. You don't necessarily have the right to just come to work all negative. If you're that negative, then you need to leave, just like you came to the organization being positive. However, I understand it's not that easy. So as bosses, we need to create an environment that is going to maintain a positive work environment that's just not a leadership job. We need to get the message and build a culture out that every person in the environment and in the program contributes to the atmosphere, regardless of the title or the position. Margaret Mead, who was an anthropologist in the 20th century, she studied leadership, social norms, and community norms. I love this quote that she says. She says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Right? So just think about that for a second. Here's an anthropologist who summarizes just a small group that came together, had a positive environment. And she studied, Margaret studied really, human behavior, social norms, how people got together, how people collaborated with each other, how they communicated. And that didn't mean that they were always on the same page. It just how they navigated each other to be successful in the environment. Even if positivity isn't company-wide, you can create a positive environment with your sphere of influence, right? Your team, your department, your immediate colleagues. You have the opportunity to create it in your space, right? Sometimes we get too big and we want to complain about, the ivory tower or the everybody else in the organization. Sometimes we need to look in the mirror and just worry about our space that we're in. And we have the opportunity to create that sphere of influence to make a positive work environment where we are standing today. You're not always going to have good days, right? I remember the time when I would come to work and I wouldn't necessarily be feeling okay, right? Or I'd be in a mood because, I was at court and I lost a court case, or I was put in a position to where I was just, my weaknesses were exposed, right? And that made me feel very uncomfortable, right? So I came to work and I wasn't necessarily in the best of moods, right? So that's going to happen, right? You're not always going to wave the flags and the balloons every day. But what I would tell you is how you deal with that is very important, right? So we want to practice self-awareness. You want to monitor your own attitude and its impact. Notice when you're contributed positively and negatively in the environment, right? So have a gauge on yourself. When I knew that I wasn't in a good mood, or I had some issues going on, I knew one or two things. I had to break out of it, or it was going to hurt me even longer, because I was going to do something or say something that was going to get me in trouble. And it was all my responsibility. So I had to force myself and train myself to say, okay, if I'm in a bad mood or I'm not having a good day, I need to stay away from people until I get happy, until I'm having a good day. And I need to have a good day pretty fast. Let me get out of this negative environment, because I don't want to stay in that negative environment. I want to be happy. I want to do good things. I want to enhance my career, and I want to take care of the people that I'm charged to serve, right? So I need to practice that self-awareness. You need to communicate effectively, express yourself clearly. You want to be respectful. You want to listen actively, and you want to understand other people's perspective. What I would tell you is society is in a position, what I've seen is that individuals are in a position to listen to respond, not necessarily listen to understand, right? And part of communication is active listening. So I'll say that again. We need to train ourselves to be better listeners. We need to train ourselves to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And the next time you're listening to somebody, you're in a conversation with somebody, you can test yourself. Your mind will go right to what you're going to say once they get done talking, right? And once they get done talking, as soon as they're done talking, you automatically come out with words. Give yourself and train yourself the opportunity to listen to the meaningful message your employees and people that you work with are trying to give you without giving a response. You've all heard of the term, or most of you, I'm sure, have heard of the term of pregnant pause. Give yourself the opportunity in a pause. Give yourself the opportunity to sink in what people say before you jump to responding. If you do that, you will create a positive work environment for your other employee. And you will also help yourself, because you're listening to understand, and you're listening, and you're going to remember what that employee is saying or what that coworker is saying. Because when you're thinking of what you're going to say, you're only half listening to what they're saying, and you're going to forget what they tell you, or at least the 25 to 30% of what they tell you. So you want to listen to understand, not necessarily listen to respond. You want to take initiative, right? When we come to work and we decide to go work somewhere, we want to be in a position to where we identify problems and we propose solutions. We don't want to wait for others to fix the issue before it gets out of hand, right? A lot of times, a lot of the issues that are brought in an environment and in a program, if we only identified them sooner and took initiative, we wouldn't have the negativity. We wouldn't have that negative work environment, or we wouldn't have those employees that are contributing to our environment in a bad way. So we want to take that initiative to solve the problems before they become problems. We want to support colleagues, right? We want to offer to help when needed. We want to recognize those contributions, and we want to be a team player, right? Sometimes we get locked into this "it's not my responsibility" mentality. the reality is we want to create an environment to where every employee of ours has the mentality that everything is their responsibility. And that's what makes a teamwork, right? That's what makes our team successful, is when we all can contribute and we can pick each other up, regardless if we're having bad days or if maybe I missed something and somebody else is going to pick it up for me, right? So they know when I'm in a position to where I'm overwhelmed, somebody's going to come right behind me to help me pick up the slack, right? So we want to create that environment where we support employees, and by supporting employees, that's another attribute where we're going to create a positive work environment. Some of the daily habits that create positive work environments, again, express gratitude. We went over that. Focus on solutions. We went over that. Don't focus on the problems. Use the problems as an advantage to make things better in your organization. Don't dwell on the problems. The problems, it happened. Let's fix it. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. And let's make sure that we learn from whatever those problems are. Practice inclusion, right? We want to make sure everybody's involved and everybody has a voice in the organization, right? A lot of times, and sometimes research, leans towards, 80% of the work is going to be done by 20% of the workforce. The reason, my professional opinion through the research I've done, is the reason that is because leadership allows it to be that way, right? When an employee comes to sit in an interview and comes work for us, I've never heard anybody say, I want to come work for you and I want to be part of that 80% that does nothing, right? I want to be part of that 80% that just does very little. I don't want no part of that 20% of the people who do the work. I just want to be that 80% that kind of sits back, just does a little bit just to get by. But I don't want to be that 20% that does most of the work, right? That is on leadership, right? The reality is our leaders need to step up. We need to make sure that everybody is involved, create the environment that it's about the team. It's about everybody on the team carrying their own weight, and not necessarily saying they're going to be at 100% every day, but when they're not at 100%, we can pick them up. So that way, one employee may go to 110 and somebody's at 90%. We're going to pick that 90% employee up because I'm at 110% today. But that's not an everyday situation. We want to make sure every team member, every employee is carrying their own weight. We want to acknowledge mistakes. This is kind of the area where we sometimes go off track, is because the way we handle how the mistake was done. Listen, the mistake that was done, or the process or the violation of policy is important, right? But just as important is how we handle that situation, how we handle solving that problem and making sure that problem doesn't happen again. We want to acknowledge the errors. We want to do it promptly. We want to focus on learning and improving rather than blame, right? We get nothing out of blaming. We get more out of teaching, learning, and letting individuals know, look, we understand this happened. It can't happen again. And this is how we want to fix it. And this is the support we're giving you as an organization. As we look at leaders' responsibility, leaders have a higher and an additional responsibility for creating a positive workforce in their environment that's going to flourish, right? Your job amplifies your impact, both positive and negative, as a leader, right? As a leader, you want to model the behavior you want to see. So if you walk into a room and you're arguing and you're just barking orders at people and you're talking down to people, guess what? That's the behavior you're modeling, and that's eventually what your employees are going to do back to you, because you're modeling a behavior that's not positive. So we want to model a behavior that's going to keep us in a positive light. We want to remove any obstacles that is going to prevent us from being positive. We want to create structures that support collaboration. We want to create an environment that has teamwork. We want to provide those resources and development opportunities. As leaders, we want to recognize where our employees may not be strong at. We want to recognize, with their input, we want to recognize their leaders and their weaknesses. And as leaders, we can provide them resources and professional development opportunities to strengthen their workforce when they are coming to work. And we want to hold people accountable, right? We want to hold people accountable for their impact. Now, when I say hold people accountable for their impact, I'm not talking in a negative way. I'm not talking of punishment. I'm talking about the way I define accountability. And the way I define accountability is it's an ownership of our own impact. It's about recognizing that what we say and do influences the environment around us, and we choose to take responsibility for that influence. I'll repeat that. My definition of accountability is ownership and taking ownership of our impact. It's about recognizing that what we say and do influences the environment around us, and we choose to take responsibility for that influence. It's all about owning it. And that's how you do it. You create an environment of accountability where people will own their own journey. And by owning their own journey, that accountability is like self-accountability. And as a leader, you create that in an environment, and it creates that pathway to a positive work environment. Some leadership practices that foster positivity, regular feedback. We saw some of the comments earlier in the chat. Lack of feedback, lack of discussion. You want to provide specific time feedback that balances recognition with growth opportunities, right? Don't do it on your convenience. Do it on the employee's convenience when you give feedback. Let them know they're important, right? They're there to provide a service to the community that they serve. You're there as a leader to enhance their professional development. Do it on their timing, not necessarily on your timing. And you will see them develop a positive impact, and you will get a better work environment out of them. You want to be transparent, right? You want to share in context and reasons behind decisions. Be honest about challenges. Sometimes our environment is moving so fast that it's in crisis. We don't stop to take the time to tell people why decisions are made the way they are and the way they work. People just want to understand. They want to have that knowledge to understand why they're doing what they do or why they're doing what they have to do. They want to understand, and if they understand, you're going to get a better work product out of them because they're going to understand the mission. They're going to understand the expectations. So you want to share that context and reason behind every decision, right? Don't hide anything from them. You're all in it together. There's certain things as a boss, yes, you don't go share with your employees. But the reality is 90% of the information you can share with your employees why decisions are being made the way they are, right? And they should be spun as positive because decisions, again, are being made to improve the organization. So when you talk about that transparency and that communication, it should be a positive conversation, and keep it positive when you're having those discussions. Delegate authority. Give team members decision-making power along with responsibilities. A lot of times that I've seen over my career, and I've worked in certain environments to where it's top-down driven. It's top-down driven where delegation is not part of the environment. So you want to make sure that you have an organization that's balanced when it comes to delegating authority. Even little pieces. Give your employees. You may have an employee that you know is not necessarily at the par of where they should be. You're building them up. Give them little wins and delegate something to them that will show that they will be successful. And if you can do that, you're building an employee up and you're building their self-confidence up. But you want to look at giving team members decision-making power along with some responsibility. And you want to invest in their development, provide opportunities for growth based on individual strengths and interests. A lot of times you can do this during the performance appraisal. If you do performance appraisals every quarter, it's a great time to sit down and just have that discussion on how you're investing in them as a leader and how you're investing in that leadership approach for them, because you want to develop their professional development, enhancing them and providing schools and trainings to them, or even just information that can make their job better. So you want to provide opportunities for growth to your employees, which will strengthen their interest, which will in turn create a positive environment or positive attitude for them because they're going to see that you care about them. Understanding your team style, right? Your team player style. We all have one, right? You may not have ever looked at it like this, but this is something I look at, and when I do training across the country, I see this has a very positive discussion, in some of the blocks that I do. Knowing your team contribution style helps you leverage your strength and manage your potential blind spots. So number one is the contributor. Focus on tasks, technical expertise, values efficiency, and high standards, right? Number two is the collaborator. Focus on goals and mission, values, big picture thinking, and cross-function work, right? I'm a number two. I like to focus on the goals. I like to focus on the mission. I like to focus on big picture, and it's all about everybody working together and having those silos. Silos will ruin an environment where your positive work environment will take a hit. It'll be not as strong as it can be if you have silos. Number three, communicator. Focus on process and relationships, values open discussion and inclusion decision making. And number four is the challenger. Focus on questioning assumptions, values honest debate, and preventing groupthink. Most people have primary and secondary style. All styles are valuable in team success. So there's not one style that's wrong. The reality is you should be using all four of the styles, right? The research has showed you usually have a primary and secondary, but what I found through my career in self-evaluating, all four styles can be used, and really that's the success, because there's sometimes that you want to have groupthink and sometimes you don't, right? So there's sometimes you want to be that contributor that focuses on task and technical expertise, and then there's other times where you want it to be a communicator, where it's a process of building relationships and valuing what everybody's opinion is. So you can use this. You can look at it to see which one you are, identify which one. Mine is number 2 and number 3. Those are my two strongest, and 1 and 4 are probably the weaknesses for me. But I would tell you that if you can use and you can navigate your environment by using all 4 of them, you will be very dynamic, and that will help you create a positive work environment. As we navigate, you can. This is a personal action plan based on what we've covered so far. One strength that you can leverage. Think about what positive behaviors you're already doing that you could do more consistently, right? Look at one habit. Sit there and think about one habit to develop. What's a new behavior that you can take away from today after going through this call that will have the biggest positive impact on your work environment? And again, one boundary to set. What limits do you need to establish and protect your work environment? What I would tell you is just culture changes when individuals make small, consistent adjustments, not when organizations make grand announcements, right? Culture changes when individuals are making small increments and adjusting, right? So when you set boundaries for your employees and for your coworkers, just understand it's not going to be one big sweep of change. Do it in small increments. And as you work towards that positive work environment, by doing it in small increments, you're going to be more successful. It's going to be more meaningful because people will understand why they're doing what they do when it looks to creating and changing that environment. One of the things I'll mention to you that from a strength standpoint is sometimes growth isn't about fixing weaknesses, right? Sometimes, we have these weaknesses and they'll never be fixed, right? Because they're deep down and deep rooted in us, right? It's about doing more what already is working. So if you can identify something in somebody that may have a weakness and you want to make it a strength, maybe you compensate by looking at another strength they have that will overshadow some of their weaknesses to make them stronger. And so the weakness isn't necessarily a weakness that needs to be used because you have a strength that's kind of overshadowing that weakness. And it's going to be productive for them. The weakness that may be driven, that may have nothing to do with work, and it may be something that is personal on their end. Focus on their strengths. Don't focus on changing that weakness that may not have anything to do with your work environment. When you look at a habit that you can develop, for example, you could look at not letting yourself get frustrated so much. I can tell you sometimes I found myself early on in my career that when I didn't know the answer, I wouldn't tell people I didn't know the answer. I'd get frustrated, and then I'd handle it probably in a way that I could handle it better, right? So one of the behaviors that you can look at is you want to build up your tolerance to where you're not so frustrated as easy, and you want to give people the opportunity to speak up, maybe ask them what they think, maybe ask them what the solution could be, or even come out and say, you know what, I'm not sure what that answer is, but let me do some research and I'll get back to you, right? Like I told you and I'd share with you is that one of the weaknesses I had early on in my career is I wouldn't say that. I would just get frustrated like they were supposed to know the answer, and because I didn't know the answer, I'd get frustrated at them. The reality is it was on me. It wasn't on them. So that is a behavior that we can change. We can change those negative behaviors or those behaviors that don't do us any good. We can change them around to make them positive. As we look at building effective relationships in the workplace, every workplace relationship, relationships are the foundation of a positive environment. Everybody needs to get along, right? Sometimes you're not going to get along on different topics, but we need to be cordial. We need to get along. And this is one research that I found interesting doing the research on this, is that research shows that having a best friend at work significantly increases engagement and productivity. Now, there is a balance to that, because you don't want to make it about that best friend and their person at work, because it's not just about those two people. But having close relationships at work create a psychological safety where people can take risk. They enable efficient collaboration and problem solving. It provides an opportunity to build resilience during challenging times, reduce misunderstanding and conflicts, increases job satisfaction and engagement, and foster belonging and inclusion. Again, there's a balance to having a best friend at work, but what I would tell you is, taken away from the best friend side, is that you need to have an environment where workplace relationships are at the highest, where people get along. There's not a problem. When they have a disagreement, they can sit and have those discussions, and they can work through those challenges as if they were family members. Relationship foundation, of course, is built on trust, right? Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, right? You want to be reliable. You want to be competent, right? You want to develop and demonstrate skills needed for your role. You want to care about people. You want to show that you're genuine concern for others and well-being. And you want to be sincere. Being sincere in your words and actions, avoid hidden agendas. So many times people sit and talk at the water cooler and have those under breath conversations with others about others in the environment, right? You don't want to have an environment like that. You want your environment to have trust. You want to build an environment where trust builds gradually through consistent behavior, but it can be damaged quickly if you have a single breach, right? So those small town drama and those water cooler discussions talking about people in the environment can really destroy your positive work environment. So as we've seen and as research has showed, is that creating a positive work environment takes energy, it takes work, it takes consistency, and it doesn't stop. You need to continuously focus on ensuring you have a positive work environment, but one single breach can destroy that at a moment's notice. So everything that you work for can be destroyed at really quick, sort of like a house fire. It takes a while to build a house, get all the permits, build the structure, move people in, get their furniture in, and then a fire comes and destroys everything that's been built over months. A fire can destroy within minutes. So same thing when it comes to a positive work environment. There's things that can destroy the positive work environment, and you need to safeguard from that. Building trust, practical trust building strategies. We want to make and keep small promises. We want to admit our mistakes quickly. We want to show appropriate vulnerabilities. And when I say that, you want to share relevant challenges without oversharing. Ask for help when needed. You want to respect confidentiality. A lot of times, usually I found out when people say, hey, I want to tell you this, but don't tell anybody I said it. The reality is they're going to go tell somebody that you said it, and they're going to go pass it along. So if it's something that you think is sharing, you want somebody to keep it secret, don't tell them. Never share information that was given to you in confidence, right? Demonstrate consistency, align your words and actions, show the same respect to all your colleagues in regards to the status, Again, if you don't want something done to you, don't do it to others. You want to communicate from a positive relationship. We talked about active listening. You want to be clear in your expressions, state your point clearly. You want to be specific about the needs and the expectations. Expectations are so important. And what I found around traveling around doing training, people don't know what their expectations are. And I will tell you, that's the fastest way to destroy a positive work environment. So for leaders on the team, and I know the HR people that are on the call here, but leaders on the call, take the opportunity to go over their expectations when it comes to their job descriptions, what's expected of them, what's expected of employees, because if they understand what they're expected of, they're going to give you a better work product. Communication breakdowns are often at the root of the workplace negativity. Improving communication skills has a direct impact in your workplace. Navigating difficult conversations, you want to prepare mentally. That's something you want to think about, right? No one likes to have difficult conversations, but clarifying your goals for the conversation, managing your emotions, and assuming positive intent. These are all things you want to think about before you go in and have this difficult conversation, right? You want to be strategic. You want to create the right environment, choose an appropriate time and place. You want to ensure privacy and minimize distractions. You want to start with an agreement. Begin with an acknowledgement, shared goals or values. Use the term we to show that this isn't personal. It's about growth. It's about you helping them. It's about you aligning and getting on the same page with them. You want to focus on the observable behaviors, describe specific actions rather than making character judgments and assumptions about motives. You want to listen to understand. We went over that. And you want to move towards a solution. Get to the solution and get them focused on what they can do better to provide a better work environment and a positive work environment. Some conflict resolution strategies: address issues early, focus on the interest and not the position, separate people from problems. Be hard on the issue, but soft on people. Attack the problem together rather than attacking the person, and generate multiple options. You want to brainstorm. I will tell you, people are very smart. If you give them the opportunity to brainstorm, they'll come up with some pretty dynamic and good solutions. Healthy conflict is not wrong. Resolve productivity, strengthens relationship, and leads to better decisions. Nothing wrong with having healthy conflict. Conflict is just part of life, and it's really something that we can derive, and we become better off at the end of the day if we have conflict. But also knowing how to deal with that conflict is really what makes us dynamic and gives us the opportunity to have and continue to have a positive work environment. The power of a team is so important. Team is built on trust. It's driven by purpose, and excellence is a team sport, right? So if you want to create a team environment and thrive for excellence, you want to have a positive work environment that's going to be effective for your team. You want to adapt quick to the changes. You want to provide social support during those challenges. You want to create a sense of belonging, and you want to distribute a workload that's more effective. We went over that. Great teamwork doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentional effort by everyone involved. Principles of a team effect: clarity of purpose, define roles and responsibilities, effective decision-making processes, constructive conflict resolution, and mutual accountability. We went over this from an individual standpoint, but it's so important that it's part of the effective teamwork that we look at all these areas because every team wants to be successful. In order for you to be successful, you have to have these 5 criteria and really work at these 5 criteria every day. Creating team norms. Team norms are explicit agreements about how we work together. They provide guardrails on behavior and set clear expectations. Nothing wrong with sitting down with your staff and identifying key areas for your team. Create these team norms, give them input, and give them the ability to create the team norms on how they're going to communicate with each other, how meetings are going to flow, how discussions are going to go. You want to document the agreements, right? Put it down. This is how we agree as a team, how we're going to navigate the environment, right? And it's not just your environment that does that. There's sports teams that do that. There's companies across the country that do it. They sit down and they create a document that shows how they all agree the positive environment will be created based on how they're going to act. So you could sit down and have this. You could do it at the functions where you have potluck dinner. Sit down and have those discussions where it's non-threatening and give people the opportunity to have ownership in their organization. Sample team norms, again, communication, meetings, process. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip that slide. Based on everything we covered, here's another one that you could look at. You could create your action plan. You can use this. You can use this for your staff after the call. If you wanted to sit down and have a meeting with your staff about creating an environment that's going to be positive, you can use this framework to assist you on that. Again, as we went through the webinar today, we talked about shared responsibilities, relationship foundation, team dynamics, and then just the daily habits. I want to thank you for taking the time for your professional development. It is so important that you continue to grow and you become a life learner. Creating a positive environment isn't just good for business. It's essential for any personal well-being, satisfaction, and for the success of your program. You spend too much time of your life working to be unhappy there. Small changes consistently applied can transform your experience and influence everybody around you. You owe it to yourself to make that difference. So my contact number again is here with my email. If you need the soundboard or you need any discussions or just someone to run something by, feel free to call me. I'll be glad to assist in any way I can. And I wish you and your programs nothing but success. And I'll close with, regardless of what position you hold, just know you're valued. Know somebody saw something in you to make a difference in the society that you're in and the program that you're in. Don't take that lightly. Take advantage of the position that you're in. And when I say take advantage of making the difference in people's lives that work for you, that work around you, and be that positive influence that can create and sustain that positive work environment. And Brooke, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Another incredible webinar, Will. This was so informative. I hope everybody can take a couple of minutes to do today's webinar feedback survey. I did place the link for you in the chat. It just takes about 2 to 3 minutes. It is anonymous. Your email and name will not be connected to it. It just lets us at the Native Learning Center know what's working well for the webinars and what we can improve upon. And we do share the feedback with our instructors. So it helps everybody involved. Hope you could take a few minutes to do that. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. That's going to be this upcoming Thursday on the 19th. This will be about using housing tax credits to cover most of the project's cost. That's going to be presented by Adam Rose, who's with Travoy. And it'll be the same time, same place. So 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Pacific, or 10 a.m. Alaska. So you would just log in like you did today. And when it's going on, you'll see that green banner on the screen. You can check out this as well as our other recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. They go back about the last 2.5 years. It's a great resource for you to check out. YouTube is free to use, and we have a ton of different housing related topics on there. And if you ever need help trying to find something specific, you can always shoot me an email. I'm putting my shoot me an email. I'm putting my email address in the chat right now. Here we go. And we hope you can check out other upcoming events. We post about them on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you are a podcast listener, we have an in-house produced podcast, the Hope of Thing, a Native American podcast, and you can listen to that wherever you listen to your podcasts. But otherwise, that is all we have for you today, folks. Thank you for this excellent installation to the series, Will, and we have more coming soon, folks. And thank you to everybody who tuned in with us today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I hope to see you back on Thursday.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.